Hey, welcome to the show. I'm here today with the author Bob Burg. He co-authored the Go Givers series. He's been on the board of directors of Furry Friends, and he's just an all-around amazing person. Bob, how are you today?
Great. That's very kind of you. Thank you, Travis. Appreciate being with you.
It is one thing to hear someone's audiobook or read something they've written. It's another thing entirely to get in the same, at least virtual room with them. So I'm pretty excited today. I know you're in sunny Florida,
Yeah.
enjoying the weather, I imagine, and I'm just happy to have you on the show.
Well, thank you. Likewise, it's an honor.
We're going to talk today about the five laws of stratospheric success and how they can be really implemented and worked over by people in the nonprofit world. I know nonprofit is such a great place to put your time, energy, and effort, but a lot of times it wears on you, and people get a little snippy, and people forget really the heart of behind of what they're doing because there's just so much work to be done.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
though there's 1.5 million nonprofits in the U.S. and since I'm a military guy, 53,000 veteran organizations, there's still so much yet left to do. And Bob, let's just hop right in with the law of value.
Sure. Well, the law of value says that your true worth, and again, this is in the business sense or the nonprofit sense or what have you, because obviously as a person you're worth an infinite amount. But the law of value says your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Now, uh, let's look at this a little bit in detail, because when you first hear it, it sounds a little counterintuitive.
Mhm.
This is and when we talk about these laws, and they work certainly just as well in the nonprofit world as in the for-profit world, but we need to still take this from a profit point, because even as a nonprofit, your nonprofit needs to make a profit in terms of bringing in obviously more than what you're spending, or you couldn't serve those who you're trying to
Mhm.
serve.
Absolutely.
So yeah, um, so to understand this, right? Because it kind of sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy. Give more in value than I take in payment. I mean, that sounds all nicey nice and everything, but it doesn't seem particularly sustainable as a business enterprise, whether profit or nonprofit. So we simply have to understand the difference between price and value. Price is a dollar amount. It's a dollar figure. It's finite. It simply is what it is. Okay. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, charity, nonprofit, what have you, that brings so much worth or value to another human being that they will willingly exchange their money for it, okay, and be glad they did,
Mhm.
while you make a very healthy profit. And again, when we talk about profit, even for a nonprofit, we mean bringing in more than what you're spending. Okay. So if we look at this in the for profit world, it would sort of be like you hiring an accountant to do your taxes, and the accountant charging you $1,000. That's her price, or her fee, or let's say her price, $1,000. But what value does she provide you or give you in return? Well, she saves you $5,000 in your taxes. She saves you countless hours of time. She provides you and your family with the peace of mind and the security of knowing it was done correctly. So she gave you well over $5,000 in value in exchange for $1,000 fee or price. She gave you more in value than she took in payment. So you feel great about it. And she made a very healthy profit. In fact, in any market based exchange, and when we talk about free market, we simply mean no one is forced to do business with anyone else. They do so on their own volition. And in a free market-based exchange, there are always two profits: the buyer profits and the seller profits, because each of them come away better off afterwards than they were beforehand. Okay. Now it's the same thing with a nonprofit. So let's say someone has uh, a charity that they're representing as a nonprofit. Okay. So what's the value? And let's say they take in a donation of $10,000. Okay. And let's say this nonprofit is I know a couple friends of yours are starting an animal sanctuary, or an animal what
That's it. Animal sanctuary. You nailed it.
animal sanctuary, right,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the Panhandle of Florida, which I applaud them for. Now, let's say they take in a donation of $10,000. Okay, what value did they give the donor for that? Okay, because obviously that it's not like the donor is getting a product or a service for it, but they are getting something for it though. Okay, they are getting the feeling that they did something good that's congruent with their values, that's making a difference in such a way that they feel better about having written that check for $10,000 than had they not written that check for $10,000. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. And when you look at things like nonprofit work, an organization that's up and running and currently doing things, if I took that $10,000 and tried to do it myself, I would get nowhere near what this established organization is able to accomplish with that same $10,000. So it does me better. I can serve the
Hmm.
community better by handing over that check for $10,000 to let the professionals do it
Hmm.
that already have systems in place that already are operating and can make that kind of impact that I can't make on my own.
Exactly. And again, if that's a high value to you, to be sure that animals are taken care of, treated as they should be with love and properly, and are fed and nourished and have a safe haven, then it's worth it to you to invest that or donate that $10,000. So both parties come away better off afterwards than they were beforehand. That is basically the law of value.
You make a great point, and when you look at the difference between for-profit business and a nonprofit business, it's just who is giving the money does not give the stuff, which is kind of counterintuitive. But again, we can always do more together. And we're moving on to the next law, the law of compensation. It's little different still because people in the nonprofit world, there's this big stigma about how much they should or shouldn't be worth in compensation. And it's a long, drawn out argument that we're not going to get into today. But the law of compensation is your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. And that's really in alignment with especially nonprofits.
Yeah. So let's take that on on a couple different levels again. So this accountant who has done such a great job for you, you love her, you'd use her again, you would refer her to others, right? And her other clients feel the same way. So our accountant is very quickly amassing what we call an army of personal walking ambassadors. Okay, and as she continues to add that kind of exceptional value to the lives of more and more people, her income will continue to grow and grow. Why? Because while value, the value you provide, the great experience you provide a customer, that represents your potential income. The law of compensation says it's about how many lives you impact. So this accountant can make a great profit. She can make a profit through each individual she serves. But when she serves a whole lot of individuals, now she can earn a whole lot of money. Well, let's take your friend's animal sanctuary in the Florida Panhandle. The person donated $10,000. That's wonderful, but that alone is not going to sustain it for too long. But the more donors whose lives they touch, with the exceptional value they provide,
Mhm.
well, the more you're going to be able to sustain that wonderful sanctuary and provide more value to more donors, as well as, of course, the animals themselves. Now, as a human being, when we talk about, as that individual human being who maybe runs the charity, that has to always, of course, be figured out how much they're going to have in compensation. And there always is that argument that people feel that if you have a nonprofit, you shouldn't be, making any kind of comfortable income. I'm not sure why that is, because the more of an income you have, the more you're able to stay in business and keep doing what you're doing in
Mhm.
order to. Now, there's a difference between that and a what would be an unseemly figure based on the fact that you're a profit. But again, that's where the free market comes into play, because remember, individual donors are able to check to see, well, how much is that person making, and the charity itself, the nonprofit itself, how much of the money is being utilized for internal and administrative purposes, and how much is actually going directly to the animals or whatever the charity, happens to be. And the market can determine if they believe it's worth their while to,
Mhm.
for the charity or the nonprofit to be operating as they are. That's why I would always rather people give their money directly to charities as opposed to giving money in taxes to the government, who pretty much handles things without a incentive to do things, of accountability, because that nonprofit is accountable, just like a for-profit is accountable. People have the ability to vote with their feet and not do business with them if they don't do things the way they are. When again, I don't want to get political here, but when the government's taking the money to filter to where they want to go, it tends to be political. Right.
It tends to be, yes, yeah. It was very interesting you talk about that. I've talked to a great many people like, oh, why not? Why nonprofits? Why should I be involved in something like this? And I was like, well, you had a huge fight trying to get custody of your kids, right? And he's like, oh yeah, like they aren't supporting single fathers. Well, how hard that battle is for you. There are nonprofits specifically designed to help men gain custody of their children. And these are people that you could have used, and those are people that you can support down the road to help the same people in your situation get over the same struggle that you had. And it's such a wonderful way to connect with other people. I just got done with a little trip down to Pensacola, Mobile area, and I met so many impactful people. You go to like these business events or whatever, and you're kind of sizing each other up. Everyone immediately treated each other like family, was interested in
Very
the
nice.
person and not, what we could do for each other. And it was so refreshing. You want to be around something like that, the thing that you care about. You want to find your tribe, so to speak, and find the people that are actually diving into the things that you love and care about. And why wouldn't you? And nonprofit is a
Mhm,
great way
mhm,
to do
mhm.
that, to
Yeah.
find a way to give back to the thing that you think is most important.
Yeah,
So
so
we've
I mean,
got
I think nonprofits serve a wonderful purpose, and I think then what it is when you have a certain values that you hold high, you look for those nonprofits slash charities slash what have you that are going to help you fulfill that those values.
Oh, absolutely. When we look and we line that up with your five laws of success here, we have your true worth determined by how much you give. Those that give to a conversation more, that just they meet someone new and they say their little thing and they focus back on the speaker, back on the other person. They walk away and say, wow, that guy's a great conversationalist. When all you did was listen and actually care
Yeah.
about the other person. And then
You know,
compensation is how many people you serve. So by giving and serving more, I think Zig Ziglar says the more people you serve, you can get anything that you want to get because
right.
you've served those people and gave them everything that they needed, which is wonderful. But you have to be able to get a group of people. And that brings us to the law of influence. Your
Yeah.
influence determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. And it's right in alignment with the first two, which is just phenomenal. I love that.
Yeah, and this one again sounds counterintuitive, maybe counterproductive, maybe Pollyanna-ish, right? Your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Then you look at the greatest leaders, the top influencers, the consistently highest money earners and fundraisers, and you notice that this is just how they live their lives. This is how they conduct their business. They're always looking out for the other person's interests. Now, let me qualify the statement, though, if I may, because I think it's easy to misunderstand, and I think it's very important. When we say place the other person's interests first, we certainly don't mean you should be anyone's doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial in any way. Absolutely not at all. It simply is Joe, the protege in the story, learned from several of the mentors the golden rule of business, of sales, of networking, what have you, is simply that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you from others than by genuinely moving from what we call an I focus or me focus to an other focus. Or as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, it's making your win all about the other person's win.
Oh, absolutely. And when you look at the nonprofit world, the fundraising world, of course, everyone knows that you need funds. You need to have capital in order to do the things you need to do to be successful, to get the right staff, to get the right equipment, to build the sanctuary you need for to house all
Mhm.
the animals. People understand that. But what are you actually giving and providing them? Are you providing them a chance to build a legacy and showcase what it is that they're able to do? Are you able to connect them with the feeling of making that real impact? What does that look like to you? How does that apply to the nonprofit world? What when you are out talking, are you talking about, hey, we need money and rattling your tin cup and say, please give? Or are you saying, this is what we've built? This is the impact we're creating. We want you to be a part of it. We would love to have you on board, making these impacts day after day after day.
Right. And that's exactly when we talk about placing their interests first. It's understanding. So in the for-profit world, I tell salespeople nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. Right? They're not going to buy from you because you need the money, and they're not even going to buy from you because you're a really nice person. They're going to buy from you only because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And you know what? It's the exact same in the nonprofit world. They're not going to donate because you would like them to, or because you have a cause you believe in. They're going to donate because they believe that they will be better off. And again, we don't mean better off financially because obviously they're giving money, but better off in other ways and uniquely, but through the feeling, the good feeling they're going to get through giving to a cause that aligns with their values, or it might be to help their business by their business looking good for doing so, or it might be for the ego of having their name on a wall. I don't know, and I'm not judging it. They're all legitimate reasons that people will do things and what have you. Their reasons may not be our reasons, but that's not the issue. It's tapping into their reasons. And when we do that, when we place their interests before our own, there's nothing self-sacrificial about it. It happens to be the best way to bring in the money to help fund your cause.
I want to go back to the beginning of this section right here because you talked about it's not about being a doormat. And one of the things that I talk about frequently in my episodes is that you have to set and establish boundaries. And you have to be nice to yourself first. Putting
Mhm.
other people's interests first is phenomenal. It's a great way to do business, but not if at the cost and the expense of yourself. If you're continually pouring out, you're eventually going to be drained and you can't pour from an empty cup. So we're not talking about that self-sacrifice and out there just, killing yourself for other people. We're not talking about that at all. We're talking about after that, after you have your boundaries set and putting them as the focus, that's what we're really talking about and getting at here. And I'm so thankful that your law has brought this up because it's one of my favorite topics.
Thank you. Thank you.
So this next law, the law of authenticity, is 100% absolutely vital for anyone that is in the nonprofit world because the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. Now, I could go all day long and try to be like Bob Burg, and I could do a great job. I could dedicate and focus my life to do it, but the best I could possibly do is be the number two Bob Burg in the world. But what that's doing is that's robbing the world of Travis and who I
Travis.
am and what I am and
Exactly.
what I care about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so there are a few elements within the law of authenticity that I think you kind of related to and you kind of saw. Um, the first and Deborah Davenport was the mentor in this part of the story, and she shared that all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they are all, indeed all very, very important, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true authentic core. Okay. But when you do, when you show up as yourself, when you show up as Travis and I show up as Bob and Mary shows up as Mary and Anna shows up as Anna, um, people feel good about us. People feel safe with us. And why wouldn't they? They know who they're getting. They know who they're getting. It is human nature to want consistency in one's life, and we will absolutely not trust that which is not consistent. Okay. So part of authenticity is consistency. And as you said, it's bringing your best self to the table. Now, we can learn from all others. The sages said, who is wise? And they answered, that person who learns from all others. By all means, we can all do that. We can adapt their wisdom, but we don't want to adopt their personality. That's when it doesn't work out. So learn from everyone, adapt their wisdom, but stay true to your authentic core. Now, I think that, and really when you think about it, what is authenticity? It's acting congruently with your values. That's what authenticity is. Now, I think there is a misperception with many people about what authenticity really is. I think sometimes they think that authenticity means having no boundaries or barriers. It's saying just whatever you want. That's authentic. Well, it's the person who says, "Well, this is just who I am. If you don't like it, too bad." Well, and that, by the way, that's not a bad philosophy if you don't want to have any good relationships and if you want to be broke. That's a great philosophy to have. But since that's not what most of us desire, I'm going to say that's a counterproductive way to be. Uh, that's not what authenticity means. It's like the person who says, "Well, I have anger issues and I yell at people a lot. And if I were to act any differently, that wouldn't be authentic of me." Oh, well, that's baloney. That's hogwash. What it means is this person has an authentic problem that they need to authentically work on in order to be a higher, more effective, authentic version of themselves. So we never want to use authenticity as an excuse to not grow. We want to use it as motivation to step into our highest self.
I was combing through your Twitter earlier today, and we came across a little statement about brutal honesty. People are trying
Ah,
to
right.
be people are trying to be authentic and be brutally honest, and you said that I
Yeah.
think they're trying to be more brutal than honest, and it
Yeah.
is it is so true. And you talk about tact, and I remember learning some lessons on tact as a young man. As far as I understand it, a lot of young men think they can do and say whatever they want. And I was one of those people, and someone brought it to my attention, and of course, initially I'm like, I'm not that way, and soon after discovered that that was not true. And the way they worded it to me and the way they got it to for me to understand is, you know, yes, you were brutally honest. You said what you wanted to say without a filter, whatever have you. But did you accomplish your goal?
Right.
Did you
Right.
get the change that you wanted from that interaction? Are they now on your side because you slapped them with a metaphorical two by four? Oh, they're not. Here's my surprise face.
Right. Well said. Absolutely. And and unfortunately, and I wrote a blog post about this because the first time I ever posted that, what I says, people who take pride in being brutally honest are typically more interested in being brutal than they are in being honest. So of course you get some people who respond by saying, "Oh, so you're saying honesty is not important?" No, that's not what I said at all. Honesty is a very, very high value. And so is tact and diplomacy and kindness. And it happens to be a lot more effective than brutal honesty, just by the very nature of the thing. Like you said, brutality does not persuade. Uh, General Eisenhower said that. He basically said that same thing, that, persuasion, is not about uh, brutalizing a person. And he was a great leader, certainly. And if a general, if a legendary general says that, I think we can probably take it on good faith. There's something to it.
People forget that once you achieve general or admiral, you've essentially spent 30 years of studying by that point, not just being a
Sure.
soldier, but you're studying and learning the art of war. You have advanced degrees, you've done these things, you've
Hmm.
written.
Hmm.
And when you get to that point, you're far more than just a soldier or just a sailor. We're getting close to our time here, so I want to make sure we get the last law in, the law of receptivity. The key to
Sure.
effective giving is to stay open to receiving. I'm under the impression that I have a lot to learn, and I strive to be wrong as many times in a day as possible, because the more times I'm wrong, that means I'm getting a chance to learn something. And most people don't really like that feeling, but I welcome it and I look forward to it. But I don't know if that's exactly what the law of receptivity is getting towards.
Well, when we can be receptive to learning, certainly we're 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game. In this case, as we talk about receptivity, which said the law of receptivity says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving, which certainly does make sense exactly with what you said. Here we're talking more in terms of, let's say, financial prosperity. And this is very important with a nonprofit as well, of course. Now, so what does the law of receptivity really say? That we breathe out and we also have to breathe in. It's not one or the other. We breathe out oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide, excuse me. We breathe in oxygen. We breathe out, which is giving. We breathe in, which is receiving. Giving and receiving are simply two sides of the very same coin, and they work in tandem. To minimize receiving, okay, out of some form of some misform of righteousness, okay, is to shut down the flow altogether. Again, we go back to your friend's animal sanctuary, okay? They are going to have to receive, right? Because otherwise they can't support all those magnificent animals that they're going to be supporting. Okay. So they've got to give plenty of value. Absolutely. They've got to breathe out. They've got to prove to the community around them why they earn their donations. Okay. And they also have to breathe in. They have to be willing to, with gratitude and humility, to accept those donations and put them to good use. You know, it's interesting. You take someone like the saintly Mother Teresa, and she lived obviously among the poor, among the disenfranchised, among the sick, right? And people seem to be under the misimpression that she was not prosperous. She lived in prosperity. When you think about it, she was an amazing fundraiser. Okay, now all the money she took in went to the poor, okay, and the sick and the helpless and the needy. Why? Because that was congruent with her values. Had you ever taken her ability to fundraise and put her in an office space in Los Angeles, had her looking out over a wonderful view, and had her living in the lap of luxury, she would not have been happy, because that wasn't her purpose in life. Okay, but so her purpose was to take care of the poor. But that doesn't mean she didn't live with a prosperous spirit. Again, she was an amazing fundraiser and she helped so many people because of that. But what if she was not receptive? What if she was not receptive? What if she just said, well, I'm poor and we're all poor and all sick and we don't need money because we don't really care about, we don't want, well, you'd have had a lot more sick people who are not being able to be taken care of. So she lived with a prosperous mindset. And of course, because of this, she was able to help many people. But it's the same with the billionaire or the person who you know does work in an office and provides value to the marketplace, and they also allow themselves to receive. And it's the same with the nonprofit who's able to go out there and do just great, amazing work with what they do and bring in so much money for the nonprofit that it's able to not only sustain but grow, and again to breathe in but also to breathe out, continue to help more people, which brings in more money where you breathe in, which can right. So in the nonprofit world, they're just like in the uh, health field. There tends to be that dichotomy between, you know, am I do I want to do good or do I want to bring in money? And it's not an or. You breathe out and you breathe in. And people in the nonprofit world have to understand that it's an and that they need to be able to receive.
When I look at this concept and I know so many great givers out there and they come to this problem about receiving, and I said, are you telling me that you spend all your time blessing all these great organizations, all these thousands of people, but it's not okay for people to bless you?
Great point.
Bob, this has been phenomenal. Probably one of the greatest half hours of my short
Oh,
career.
thank
Absolutely
you.
wonderful and lovely. I know you have the Go Giver podcast, but where can people find you, and what do you have that's on the horizon for you and your organization?
Well, Berg, Burg is the best place to find me. People can get chapter one of and an excerpt of any of my books while they're there. They can check out our Go Giver Success Alliance membership community if they'd like. And there's a whole bunch of other goodies and resources there. So berg.com is the place to go.
Hey, thank you so much, Bob. I appreciate it.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Thank you for all you're doing.